Good morning, everybody. We just had very short gospel reading, isn't that right? It was three very short paragraphs. And but yet, even though it's a brief gospel reading, it sort of takes you into the heart of what it means to be a Christian and how we live the Christian life. The context is as following. That is, Jesus had been preaching for a while. He had gone through the area in Galilee, preaching his message. So he sort of come to the other side of Galilee. And one would expect that when he turned to his disciples, one would expect that he would have said to them, what was the reaction of people to me today? But he didn't ask that question. Rather, the question he asked was just, who do people say that I am? Whole question of identity. And he got several answers from the disciples. Some said they thought he was John the Baptist. Others, Elijah. Still others, one of the prophets. So he was getting sort of good press, if you will. But then he said to them, who do you say that I am? And Peter, who was the boss man, Peter said, you are the Christ. Meaning that this man who was preaching to them was actually God in human form. So you could say in this occasion, Peter was the one who really got it right. And Jesus said to them, he says, keep it to yourselves for the moment. And then he went on to say the following, mind you, he said the following, he says, he began to teach them that the Son of Man, meaning himself, must suffer greatly, be rejected by the elders, the chief priests and the scribes, be killed, and after 3 days he will rise. And Peter's reaction was, he says, Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. He says, how could such a thing happen to you? How could that happen to you? In other words, Peter believed that Jesus was the Messiah, that he was a winner. They were all looking for a winner, as we all do. That's how we looked at Notre Dame last night. We're looking for a winner, okay? Not looking at how the Florida teams, okay. So they're all looking for a winner. And basically, Jesus is saying to them, I'm not going to be a winner. I'm going to be a loser. And so straight away, when Peter says, God forbid that should happen to you, Jesus' response to Peter was, get behind me, Satan, he says. You're not judging by God's standards, but by human standards. Okay, so he's saying, this is what God ordained for me, not necessarily what you are looking for. So that's the end of paragraph number 2. The third paragraph is addressed to the disciples that were there, but it's addressed to the people of all times. It's also addressed to every one of us who that's here today. Jesus said to the crowd with his disciples, he says, whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses life for my sake and the gospel will save it. That is a fairly harsh statement, okay? That it's in losing your life that you find it. And see, Jesus knew this from his own situation. He knew what we call the paradoxical nature of the gospel. That is, he knew that it was in losing his life that he was going to be raised up to a newness of life. And if that's what's going to happen to him, that is what he was suggesting would happen to all of us. But the whole question of denying yourself and taking up your cross, that's very scary. It's very scary kind of language. So look at the world today and look at yourselves. And, I have people say to me all the time, don't talk to me about picking up my cross. This is what I'm doing every day. I have 3 kids or 4 kids or whatever the case may be. I have a job and I don't have time to dress myself sometimes. And what I often hear it says is, I don't have time for prayer. And if that's how you feel, how about this? Your prayer is not something over there in the corner. Your prayer is what you're doing every day. You are involved. The whole question of raising children, but trying to raise them to be God-fearing children, that in and itself is a prayer. You are praying by the way in which you react, the way in which you act to your children, the way in which you act to the world. The same is true with regard to some of you who are working in situations where your boss is nasty or whatever the case may be. And how do you deal with that, okay? And do you spend your time moaning and groaning? Or on the other hand, do you take up your cross? Do you say, this is the way it is, I'm just going to, if I can't get out of it, then I'm just going to accept it and put up with this nonsense every day of my life. So a challenging situation. Now, so there are a lot of people who are very busy with work and stuff like that, so you cannot, be involved in other activities. But then there's a whole bunch of people who are retired, and sometimes we're trying to feel that, if I'm retired, then my life is my own. I'm retired and my life is my own. And the answer to that is, it is your own, yes. It also, you have an obligation to others, meaning we're all here for a purpose. In other words, we're here to make a difference, okay? There's a little statement in Psalm 116, verse 12, that says, "What return shall I make to the Lord?" So if you're retired and have time in your hands, what are you doing with that time? And to what extent are you trying to make a difference? To what extent are you trying to take up your cross each day and follow in the footsteps of the Lord? The theme which we have chosen for this time of year is it's surrender, and this is what I'm talking about. It's surrender. It's be Christ, share Christ, and that's what's invited of us. And sometimes it doesn't mean going elsewhere to do something special. By doing what you're doing and doing it to the very best of your ability and doing it for the right reason, then you are, in a sense, you are being Christ to other people. The song at the end of Mass is one that we all have heard a million times, but it's beautiful. It says, "Lift high the cross." We're all called to lift high the cross, and in doing so, we're working out our own eternal salvation. Amen.